Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great perspective. Now, I mean, this is definitely a recessionary environment. Regardless of what you think the predictions are, I mean, we're there, and I think there's uncertainty on how bad it's going to be, how long it's going to be. Is it going to be a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped, an L? That being said, this happened 11 years ago, 2008, 2009. There was a recessionary environment. Now, you could make the argument that this is similar, this is going to be totally different. Regardless, operating a business in an environment where, like you said, money's not flowing fast enough, we're going to enter an high unemployment kind of environment. You started Vokal in 2009. Kind of,
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy for us, the attendees, to say like, wow, that was crazy. Like, why didn't you wait? That seemed like the worst possible time. So we've talked about this, but walk everybody through, your story, the founding of Vokal in 2009. And, we'll kind of get into where you're at today and what you're doing for clients, but talk about those maybe first couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's kind of one of those scenarios where you'd rather be lucky than good sometimes. I was finishing up my junior year of college when the iPhone came out, and so I just, I'd been thinking through a lot of ideas while I was in school. Didn't necessarily say I tried to start a few businesses, but was always kind of tinkering on ideas. And a very simple idea came is like, will businesses be investing in apps at that time on iOS? Android wasn't a platform. And so for me, I think like the lucky piece is that I was in school. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a full-time job. So I didn't have a lot to lose or to risk. And we, picked a really good platform to move on, which was mobile, kind of this modern push of mobile apps. Mobile apps had been around for some time, but this was kind of a new experience to users, and became the fastest growing digital platform that we've seen. So I think the luck really came with just the timing, where I was in my life. The fact that I had been thinking through ideas and had that entrepreneurial spirit. And the fact that we picked mobile. I remember, the story I share with folks is that we were featured on a CNBC special called Planet of the Apps. And they followed us around, just like the kind of the myth of like submitting to the App Store, and is the app going to get in or not? And kind of the undertones of it was, are apps just a fad, or is it going to be something that we adopt at scale? And you look back now, and the statistics around mobile and how much time we spend on our devices, and I think mobile became the most popular device for humans in 2019. So we grew really nicely the first 4 years. I mean, we just, again, got very fortunate that we got onto a platform, became very good at what we were doing, had a really nice value proposition, and the market demand for it was insane. I mean, we also started a school a few years later that we exited, that became one of the largest training platforms for mobile app design and development. So again, it just kind of, we really hit the time right, and then executed a lot of the right things. So it wasn't, I'd say, for us, not having a lot of infrastructure, being young, having a young team, and just not having a lot to risk didn't really make it something I thought too much about. But yeah, in hindsight, it was kind of a crazy time for most to be considering starting a company.
So you were focused on building mobile apps. And I think you're right. Like, I remember that time when the smartphone came out, it was like, yeah, there's an app for this and there's an app for this. And like, if you weren't native to it, you're like, oh, what's this app stuff? And then you got the iPhone, and then like, okay, now I get this thing. It was around that time, it sounds like, that you had started the business. You might've had some insight into kind of what's going on, but what was your customer base at that time? And did you even realize that there was a recessionary environment going on at the time?
There's a lot of startup, a lot of early stage ideas to begin with. And I'd say, like, as you moved, I think where the platform really started to take is when not that we were recovered from the recession, but I think we started getting a little bit more confidence in terms of where the economy was going. So, around late 2010 is when we started to pick up some Fortune 500, Fortune 100, started to move into larger enterprise, which was good timing. I mean, startups, typically need to have these skill sets in-house. They either, can't pay their bills after a period of time, or they are acquiring their own talent, which we learned and moved on pretty quickly. So the customer base was very broad. It was everybody from, I remember we had a guy named Tazon Day. It's funny you asking these questions because it kind of takes me back through memory lane. Who at the time was one of the largest YouTube stars. He did a song called Chocolate Rain for anyone that had heard of that. And so
I
this
know
was
exactly
2009.
who he is. Yeah,
Yeah.
no other further explanation needed. I was one of his first subscribers. Watched it
So
all the time.
that was one of my favorite
That's
customers to
hilarious.
have. But we saw a lot of funny things then, for sure.